welcome to this first writing live stream. So, I'm really nervous. Oh no, wait. Okay. I had my own stream on in the background to make sure it works. It was a bit distracting. So, first things first. Hello, I'm Emilia. I'm an indie author and I am currently working on my pirate fantasy novel and want to take you with me on this whole journey. So, my idea for today is that we will start the second draft, which in my process is rewriting the whole thing. And I have my first draft on an iPad right beside my screen, just to make sure I'm not copy and paste anything. Yes, and I... okay. Oh! Nice start. So I am planning on hopefully rewriting 3 chapters today. That's what I am prepared for, at least. So let's hope that we can get that far, and if we get further, that's okay too. That's a win. So I have some points for this first chapter and like for a few chapters forward. And I mainly just read through my first draft and made some notes that were like, oh, I will think about this, or this is a talking point, because I want to keep it interesting for you who are watching this as well, no matter if you're watching it as we're live or in the future. But yes, so we will start with the first real chapter, and the reason I'm calling it the first real chapter is because I want this book to start with I will backtrack a bit, because in this novel, bottled letters are kind of an important thing. 2 of our main characters are basically exchanging letters, though it's more one person is writing the letters, sending them out because she wants to do something with her feelings, get her words out to the world and out of her head. And the other character is responding by sending different pretty trinkets. So it's jewelry, pretty rocks, anything that they consider like, oh, I want you to have this pretty thing. And so I want the book to start, like after all the, usual book stuff with title pages and everything, I want it to start on the latest letter. But I'm not gonna write that today, because I want to do that later in the process when we have more of a feel for what might actually be in that letter. So that's why we're starting with the real first chapter, and why I'm calling it the first chapter with, bunny ears. And this novel is a multi-point of view novel. I don't seem to be able to write single point of view stories at all, it seems. So our first character is Captain Jones, and this first chapter will mainly like introduce Jones as well as some of their crewmates, the two most important ones, I would say. And the only thing we probably should know about the letter before we start writing is that the last time they sent trinkets, they sent a seashell. And this other character, Cordelia, I can use her name. Cordelia she has made it into a necklace, and she's mentioning that in the letter because if I remember correctly, another character will mention that specific thing. And also, now I'm just talking instead of writing, but I'm rewriting it to make like big changes and like adding stuff, filling things out, so I won't be too picky with my sentences. Because we're thinking big picture, and then we can just polish it down until we're on the line and copy editing. Though I will make sure I get the squiggly lines away, because I'm picky like that. As you can see, I cannot spell for the life of me. Okay, let's see. Okay. Can you tell that I'm super nervous? Like, it's so weird to just sit here and write and having like a potential person just watching you. Okay. So I really should put more things about Jones in here. I really should. Okay, so on to the Googling. it's like that. Okay, so ah. Do 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 do. Okie dokie. Oh, okay, that felt good to include that thing there. Okay, so I am trying to get in the fact that Jones has their little secret that they're hiding from their crew, or they think they're hiding it from the crew, and I guess they're hiding it from most of the crew. And like, this is a thing that's like it will be important for Jones throughout the book to try to keep this secret. Sometimes they will struggle. But they will also have support, even if their support isn't openly supporting them, just doing things behind the scene to make things easier. Okay, right, I forgot about that. Oh. Much better, okay. I don't remember. Okay, so I have given this character named Silver an official position on the ship. I just don't remember what. So I will need to find it. I know where they mention it, so I will just go through and try to find that chapter. This is why I like named chapters. Okay. I think I found it. Chapter 20. Quite a bit to search for it. I will add this to his profile too. So I found it. He's the quartermaster. He is also their sailing master or navigator, depending on how fancy you want to get. But since that's not his like only thing, and it's not really usual for pirates to have their own sailing masters or own specific navigators, I've also given him the title of quartermaster. So officially he's the quartermaster when they introduce themselves or introduce him, but you will see later on. So while I wrote the first draft, and while doing all the planning and researching and, you know, everything, I think my favorite dynamic in this whole book is between Silvereye and Reaper. Because these two get along like oil and water. Like they fight, they badmouth each other, and they do, if one of them says don't do that, the other person will do that. But they're also very close, and their teamwork is on a different level. Like, that's not even a joke. They're able to do things no one else can do when they actually work together. But they do have to work together for that. There is also some other things that will come in later. But if you see me just smiling and giggling, that's why. Like, these two idiots are probably the highlight of my writing time. I do love almost all of these characters. There is one who is annoying as well, but we like him too, kind of. He's important. We're gonna have to make him likable, at least to a certain degree, because he will be a point of view character. This is also an important thing, because Silver and Reaper have kind of acted as parents to Jones. Jones joined the ship when they were like 13, and Reaper has been on the ship like forever. He's been there the longest. He's probably the one with the most to say. And if he says that person will be the captain, that person will be the captain. And he's just content being the first mate. He doesn't feel the need to be the captain, and it's kind of good he isn't. Because while his people skills aren't terrible, they aren't great either, so it's up to Jones to keep the crew not fighting too much. Though getting Reaper and Silver to not fight is probably asking too much of anyone. Oh, damn. Okay, hopefully this was the only time I misgendered my own character. Sorry, Jones. Can I even write words? So apart from the letters, another thing that we will need to introduce in this chapter is the fact that Reaper doesn't leave the ship. He has his reasons, but he also hasn't told anyone his reasons, so people are speculating. And Silver probably more than anyone. because my boy has a problem. Does anyone else do the thing where you're like, you write the word and then a letter ends up in the wrong place and then you can't figure out how to spell it unless you backtrack completely? Because that's pretty much what just happened. I am realizing I will need to move this. Right. Okay. This is a good place where I need to change things and change big things. Because I have written in my first draft that more often than not, the one doing damage up there was Silver, and Jones had already given up on getting between the two of them. But then, as I wrote this first draft, I realized that Silver doesn't like going up there. Silver is terrified of heights. So I will need to... I think I can just cut that whole part out, because it's not relevant anymore, and I do feel like what comes after works without that context that isn't really a context anymore. I have also realized that I might need to do like a profile thing for this book to have in the beginning, because I am very fond of nicknames when I write. I feel like they tell a whole lot about the person using them, and like you can explore how the person who gets a nickname feels about that nickname. And especially like here, because while Reaper's real name won't really be relevant except for like 1 or 2 lines of dialogue, and the same is... No, I was gonna say the same is true for Silver Eye, but he does actually refer to himself, because Silver Eye will also be a point of view character, and he refers to himself with his given name. And all the various names they have for Jones, and like Jones refers to themselves as Jones, because that's the only thing that kind of makes sense for them. But their name will also have importance. I think maybe that's it. I feel like names are really important, and because I did the same thing in Keep Me Breathing with people giving each other nicknames, and like Casey is the only one who is using Alex as a nickname for Alexander and not Sander, and Sander himself prefers Sander over the use of Alexander. And there I kind of wanted it to be like Casey is kind of sticking out in that regard, and he feels close to Sander, but he doesn't feel like he's in the inner circle of calling him Sander. And there's also the whole part in Keep Me Breathing where like Casey doesn't use Fubuki's name until she tells him he's allowed to, basically, because she started out with, "Why should I give you my name?" So I don't know, maybe that would be a good thing, because I can see how it might get confusing. And I feel like I'm currently reading the last book in like the Ink Heart series, because there came out a new book recently, or like a year ago or so. But I haven't gotten around to reading all of it, and I remember those books always had like a name, this is this person, a name, this is related to this person somehow, a name, oh, see this other name. So maybe I should do something like that. I would need to like give myself even more pages to format and make pretty though, but I think that could work. Maybe. Okay, back to writing. And I have misgendered Jones again. Keeping the remains of the crew satisfied. Yeah. Words. No. No. first real chapter done. And it's been like an hour, so let's move on to the next chapter. So now the reason they are going to land is because we are leading up to what happens later in chapter 3. We will get the meet cute in chapter 3. But first we will move away from the locket, because the ship is called the Locket, like Davy Jones thing. And I don't know if there's anything interesting to say about it, but let's just go through and see if we have something that might be good to mention. Nah. So we have introduced the letters, we have kind of introduced the crew. We have only touched upon the secret though, but I think that's okay, because we have like hinted that okay, there's something Jones is keeping secret, and like I don't know why I'm talking around the problem or around it like it's some kind of big secret for me or for the reader, because the reader will know about the secret pretty soon in Jones's next chapter actually. But Jones was born Diana Jones, and for reasons, this is also why I am referring to Jones as they, them, because they are kind of in between. They are pretending to be a man, because this world does have like the stereotypical woman shouldn't be on a boat. The reasoning for it is in history things happened, and the goddess of the sea goddess is she's petty, and she is holding on to things, especially grudges. But like now when this takes place, it has kind of been forgotten, because like a big religion has taken over that claims that it's only one god, so they can't really like have the sea goddess exist. Besides, I don't think anyone wants to remember the sea goddess. Which will also be important later. But to get away from like their shitty situation, when like after their father had died, Jones took on the name Davy Jones instead of Diana Jones. And since they were still like an early young teenager, they could get away with it. It has gotten harder, as bodies grow up and puberty and things. And that's also many of the reasons why they are kind of struggling to keep it a secret, because bodily functions and hormones. And like I said, the reason women aren't allowed on the ship, like on ships overall, is because the sea goddess is a petty bitch. And she has a grudge to one woman and makes it everyone else's problem. But I also feel like in John's case, it also makes sense even more, even though they don't know it yet. And so, like I have mentioned before, this whole story started with what if Davy Jones and the Kraken were in love? And then, the more time I thought about this story, the more characters stopped being human. And, like, part of the idea came from, like, watching Pirates of the Caribbean. But also, like, Davy Jones never was connected to the Flying Dutchman legend-wise. The captain of the Flying Dutchman, however, will be relevant. And they will be relevant to Jones, so they will have a connection. And the Flying Dutchman will... the Flying Dutchman exists. And it used to be captained by a fearsome pirate named Crow, or called Crow, which, like, she was a big pirate back in the day, before stuff happened. But now the Flying Dutchman is basically a ghost ship, and, like, it will be introduced later, but the crew ended up being like, okay, the captain is a ghost, and there's 2 vampire twins, and, like, Dracula-style vampires, which, being on a ship when you can't, like, cross over flowing water is, especially in, like, a ghost ship with more holes than Swiss cheese in it. But it also has a half troll. So, and that's the whole crew. It's a pirate ship. The captain doesn't even need a crew. But he has kind of adopted his own little found family. And I think I just rambled a bit now, but speaking of Crow might be a good thing though, because I used to be of the impression like, oh, I want to go up into a crow's nest on a ship because it looks so cool and it looks like it's a fun thing. You get to climb up there and you see everywhere. And then I learned that most people hate being up there because it's so far up on the mast. It kind of swings even more than the ship does, and like I found somewhere that historically they sent people up there kind of as a punishment. So I also wanted to like add that point of view into it, because there are people who will question why don't you send one of your kind of prisoners up there, you know? And the crew just have to say like, yeah, no, you would probably die if you go up there because that's Reap's place. But I realized I should mention that because that will be relevant later, and if you're like young me, then you would you might be confused about it. You probably know more about it than I did, but you never know. Also, there is an island called Crow's Nest, because it was where Captain Crow resided. So there's gonna be a lot of crow. But yes, okay, we're moving to the city of Hopewell, or the town of Hopewell, and Cordelia Delmore. And like, I am a bit unsure if I want this chapter to start the way it does, because it does start with 2 new characters that we haven't seen before, and then one of them leaves. But I also feel like this moment is more interesting than just starting a little bit later, because Cordelia isn't really allowed to be near the ocean because her dad is overprotective. He has his reasons, he just kind of takes them to the extreme. But her uncle, because siblings, usually just takes her to the ocean and tells his brother to deal with it. You just have to accept it. I'll be there. It'll be fine. But Cordelia's uncle is also a commander on, like, in the Navy. So he is gone for long periods of time. And so this chapter starts with just like him leaving, which also means that Cordelia can't really go to the ocean without sneaking out, you know? And I felt like it's an interesting place to start, just because it's like an emotional moment where we get to see one of the big problems, which, you know, is the fact that she can't go to the ocean even though she desperately wants to. And now you won't see what I'm writing again. I should probably do this window bigger. Let's see if I can. No. Then you probably won't see what it says, right? You know what? I'm just gonna move it around a bit here. That's fine, right? That's fine. I don't need this phrase here. Okay, I should not overthink this. I am currently like, maybe I should not use his name and just use her uncle, but also I can just call him Uncle Levi. Yeah, I haven't mentioned that I removed the part where he was her uncle, so Uncle Levi. Let's go for that. Now, I named these characters the way they are named because of like my plans for them. Because like Cordelia will be the Kraken character. I couldn't just name her Kraken, but Cordelia was still a name, but still like hinting on the little connection. And at first, when I started thinking about this, I was like, okay, so her uncle will also turn into a sea creature to try to find her. Now that didn't happen, and it doesn't happen. It's something that might happen when he's really old and just like to be with her and other people. Probably not though, but that was the plan from the beginning, to have him become Leviathan, kind of. It's also why his ship is called the Sailing Serpent. Even though he's not the captain, he's just the commander. And I was about to say more than I should have there, so... Okay, I think it's good I actually, like, specified Uncle Levi, because this might have sounded a bit romantic otherwise. He Another nickname. So, yeah, this family also has a lot of nicknames. Or a few. But Cordelia has Dida. And I think Rosemary also has a nickname. I don't remember. Rosemary is Cordelia's older sister. So Cordelia's family is her father and her older sister and her older brother and her. And then their uncle. Cordelia's mother died giving birth to her. So that's also why, like, their dad is even more overprotective. But also, their dad and Levi used to have a sister who was kind of swallowed by the ocean. I don't know why I keep giving people like nicotine addictions. I don't know. There's Casey in Keep Me Breathing, like in the Infernal Cave. Commander Zack in the Infernal Cave. And Levi. Maybe it's not that many, but it kind of felt like, oh, another big character who has an addiction. It fits their aesthetic. That's my official reasoning. And yeah. It suits them. What did I just do? Okay, I just... Oh, okay, I went to the... Nice. I don't know why I keep having my headphones on, because I did plan to, like, okay, I can listen to music without, all the copyright thing situations, but then I just didn't start the music, so I've been just having them on. Though it feels really weird to not have them on. It feels way more open. I will try without them. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Oh my god. So Cordelia pretty much has my living room is huge, and that's why I'm just like looking over my shoulder, because it sounds huge, and when I had the headphones on I just didn't hear anything, which is also why I usually like have headphones on, though I usually do listen to music, but it was really distracting. But yes, Cordelia does have kind of a like Moana situation going on. I realized just a few days ago the likeness between them. Not completely the same thing, but that longing and that yearning for the ocean is there, and it's similar. Okay. Ah. So there isn't really a like canon reason for why Cordelia longs for the ocean so much. But the reason her siblings doesn't, at least like not to the same extent, is because the thing that forbade them, or like started the whole thing of them not being allowed to go near water, happened when Arthur was really young. And like it was before Cordelia was born, but it was very close to when she was born. So since Rosemary is the oldest, she has had that like, oh, I could go to the ocean if I want to, when she was still a kid. And like Arthur had that for a little bit, and like he remembers, but also he was there when the thing happened, so he is very much aware of the whole situation, even more than anyone else is. And he used to want to be a navigator, but his dad managed to convince him to, you know, follow in his footsteps and become a merchant instead. And this is also a thing where I had to change part of my first draft, because I had written in like, oh, her siblings never seemed to share this longing. And also like, even though it was hinted that Cordelia had seen Arthur watch it from his balcony. Arthur is her older brother. It's her brother. But that kind of made it seem like they weren't close. And many parts in the first draft, the siblings weren't as close as they became the more I wrote them. So I will need to change this to make sure that they're close from the beginning, because I want these three siblings to be close, but not like they all have their own lives, but they are close to each other, though it's not obvious for other people. More like that, and not like they're just living their own lives and not really knowing things about each other. It's so fun to look back on things I wrote like 2 years ago. Because I wrote this first draft in 2023 in November, so we're getting close to 2 years. And this is the second chapter, so very early November. So. Oh. It's so fun to remember that, like, well, Cordelia writes her letters to Jones specifically. Jones isn't the only one putting trinkets in the bottles to return to her, because they have made it a thing among the crew. Oh, okay, that sounds a bit bad. But it's like Cordelia is part of the crew. The crew considers her part of the crew, even though they don't know her name, what she looks like, where she is. All they know is what she says in the letters, or like what Jones tells them that she says in the letters. And that she likes their trinkets. That's all they know about her. And for them, that's okay. That's everything they need to know. And that is lucky for her, I would say. Okay, so last chapter for today. Okay, so I'm gonna double check my notes. Oh yeah, right. Chapter 3 is the big chapter, or one of the really big chapters. Not like it's a long chapter or a chunky chapter, it's just very dense. And it happens so many important things, even though they are just hinting at important things. But there will be the whole secret with Jones, because the next chapter is going back to Captain Jones. So the first 4 chapter will just be Jones, Cordelia, Jones, Cordelia. Chapter 5 will introduce another character that is also the only point of view character we haven't met yet. Not yet, but we will meet him in the next chapter. But this chapter takes place first at a pub in Hopewell. Because of course. And Jones and Silver is talking in this pub when they have docked, and Silver's frustrated with Reaper again, like always. We will also see the land part of Silver, which he is very much every stereotypical bisexual there is when he's on land. Not on the ship, but when he's on land. This is also one of the chapters where I will leave a placeholder, because I mentioned that there will be a song related to this story that will hint on some things happening like back in history in this world. not our history, but the song will pretty much be about the Dutchman, the Flying Dutchman, and kind of a mix of when Captain Crow, mostly about Captain Crow, or her time with the ship, because the ship was considered cursed, or like the captain was considered cursed, which is a whole other thing that just... There's a prophecy, and she kind of made it a prophecy. That's all I will tell you for now. And that's just... the song is gonna be that story. And a few lines will come up in this bar, in this pub. I honestly don't really know the difference between a pub and a bar. I will need to look that up. But that will just send Silver spiraling into maybe Reaper is cursed, and they will eventually just shoot it down. That's the thing. And then Jones will leave because Silver is being land-bound Silver, and Jones will meet Cordelia. That's it. And like, this is kind of the big thing that sets this whole story off. It's this event. And it's also the event that we will have 3 chapters like covering this event, because we will have this chapter with Jones when they meet Cordelia, and then we will have Cordelia a little bit earlier, and then to the point where she meets Jones and the bad thing happens, and then we will have our new character Rasmus also like while the meet cute is happening and Rasmus is going to find Cordelia and being stupid. No, I will not talk about that today, because, like I said, Rasmus is, I think he's a very important character. He is annoying though, and I will need to make him more likable and more like naive young boy instead of just plain stupid. Because right now he comes off more as stupid. But yes, chapter 3. And this is actually a pretty short chapter. So I am just using square brackets to like make a placeholder, because one, then I can just search for one of the square brackets, because I don't use square brackets anywhere else. Like what do you even use square brackets for otherwise? I don't know. This works. And I know like a lot of other people also use square brackets. I've picked it up from my peers and mutuals. Maybe I should have more visual descriptions. I don't know, I usually like being fed just a little bit at a time, but I know some people prefer to like have a description early on. Like there will be descriptions of them later, but right now most of the people interacting already know each other, so but this, I guess you should be able to deduct from Silver Eye's name that he has a silver eye. Maybe it's not really like it could be gray, but he has a silver eye. He lost one of his eyes and has a silver eye because he's fancy. There's more of a backstory there. For now, I will just sprinkle in. We'll see. I will do like feedback and beta readers, for example, and I will just see what they think. So now we will probably introduce, like, properly. Now we will properly introduce the secret. I feel like I'm talking like, oh, I've read this book and these are the points that I should meet. Like the story beats. This is just like me naming the things that happens, because I usually write, like, have a beginning of something and then go on to see where the characters take the story. So it's not like, oh, the secret must happen. I have just named it the secret because they are keeping this thing a secret from their crew. And they are terrified of how the crew will react if they learn about it. And especially Reaper and Silver. Those are the ones they are most terrified will figure it out, and the ones most likely to figure it out too, because they are the ones closest to them, and the one, Reaper is basically their surgeon, so he's the one stitching them up, and he's also very good with fabrics. So he kind of does laundry sometimes. You wouldn't expect that, would you? I need to move the thing again. Okay, so the reason it's so funny that Jones is scared that Reaper will find out is because Reaper already knows. Reaper is basically the dad to Jones, or the mom. Honestly, they're both the dads. And also, like, Reaper knew some other people Jones were related to, so he recognized them, and Jones has the same eyes as someone Reaper once knew, who Jones is related to, and also looks like someone else he also knew. So Reaper knows, and Reaper is pretty much the reason this is staying a secret from the crew. I am really not sure about the singular themselves. Let's say themselves for now. 3 chapters done. Okay, so I think that's it for today, and I think it's a good stopping point, because then the next few chapters will tackle their meeting and things happening around their meeting, so it's a good place to round off. And also I am starting to misspell words even more than I did in the beginning, so I should probably get, to sleep and rest my brain. And also I have work tomorrow and it's evening, or almost night here, so if the recording of this live stream will be up on my channel, and I've also added it directly to the Wrapped in Ocean playlist. So if you're watching this later, but like before we finish this whole thing, or even after, let me know if there's anything you want to know about the characters or the world, because I can probably and will go on about them a lot. They are occupying my brain, and I hope one day they will occupy yours too. So this was scary. I will do it again next Friday, same time, or I will start the same time, and then we'll see how long we go on for. I'm terrified, but it's been fun. It was easier to find things to talk about than I expected it to be. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great adventure, and I'll see you next week.